you tax the rich, they'll just leave. Good. I'll drive you to the airport myself, mate.
I think it's time for this tax the rich conversation to start evolving. Because sure, if you try to tax a wealthy individual's property, then that wealthy individual can leave to somewhere that isn't going to tax their property quite as much. But that argument kind of ignores that more often than not, the property in question are shares in a giant multi-billion or trillion-dollar corporation that is actively extracting and hoarding wealth from your economy. Like, they can leave, but they can't take the corporation with them. See, the Cayman Islands might have basically no taxes, but they also have basically no consumers. The value of the company, right, which is the value of the assets that the wealthy people own, is directly correlated to how much of your economy their company is able to dominate. And besides that, most of the ultra-wealthy people who are using giant multinational corporations to extract and hoard wealth from your economy, regardless of where you live, don't live in your country anyway. And I think that needs to be addressed more, right? I don't think the end goal here should be having the government take a bunch of cash off the wealthy, which ultimately will probably just end up targeting the upper middle class, which is not the right people. I think the goal should be to limit giant corporations and giant conglomerates' ability to extract as much wealth and dominate as much of the market share as they currently are in the first place. Essentially, you fix the wealth inequality problem before the money makes it into their pockets. You don't then try and get it back out of their pockets. Because when you wait until they already have their hands on it, you run into a firewall of corporate lawyers, lobbyists, and accountants busy finding loopholes or bribing politicians to keep making loopholes faster than they're making regulation to limit corporate activity. And this is why the problem keeps getting worse, right? Because the system by which the ultra-wealthy create wealth and move wealth and store wealth and hide wealth and systematically devalue the wages and the labor of the people is becoming more and more complex over time. But the conversation we're having surrounding trying to address that is still stuck at, do we make tax number bigger number or smaller number? See, a lot of these companies are able to monopolize huge portions of global industries by aggressively investing in growth and then reporting it as non-profitability. Essentially, whatever portion of your revenue that you invest into growing your business doesn't count as profit and therefore isn't taxable. And for small businesses, this is a good thing, right? The system should be like that. It should be easy for you to invest in growth and building your business, your customer base, and increasing the amount of jobs that you're offering to your local community. But growing past a certain size makes it so a business can utilize this to undermine the integrity of the entire economy and make it totally uncompetitive. This is how Jeff Bezos grew Amazon to its current size, right? For the first several years, Amazon was not profitable. They were losing money. They were lowering prices on products to the point of non-profitability in order to make it impossible for smaller businesses to compete. Now, when those smaller businesses went out of business, this means that there's less competition in the marketplace, which means Amazon is dominating a larger share of the market. This makes their projected future profitability go up, which gives investors more faith in the future of your company, which makes the share price go up, which means the people who own the shares are becoming much wealthier, even though their company isn't making money. This is how wealth is created at the upper levels in the modern world, right? It has less to do with being profitable, with actually making money, than it has to do with investors' belief that you will make money. Elon Musk might be the best example of this in history, because none of his companies are actually all that profitable relative to his net worth. But Tesla's PE ratio, which is the ratio between the share price and earnings per share, is astronomically high. And the reason for that is because Elon Musk makes an awful lot of promises about future innovations that are supposedly just around the corner, right? Robot butlers or microchips in your head that give you X-ray vision or self-driving cars or what have you. So essentially, he didn't get as rich as he is by making a bunch of money, but because investors believe believe that in the future, he will make a bunch of money by dominating a market that doesn't actually even exist yet. So what are we actually supposed to do about all this? Well, the short answer is, I don't know, right? It's a very complicated problem. The point that I'm making is that the conversation we're having surrounding it is nowhere near complicated enough and will therefore probably not go anywhere useful. However, there are a few suggestions that could be made. We could, for example, limit wealthy people's ability to use their shares as collateral in order to borrow money, like the way Elon Musk did when he borrowed $15 billion to acquire Twitter. See, if the only way to extract value from your company is either to pay yourself a high salary, which is taxable, or to sell the shares in your company, which is taxable, then you're effectively removing the ultra-wealthy's ability to use their wealth to keep expanding their wealth whilst constantly avoiding the tax man. Another suggestion could be to limit a company's ability to invest in growth past a certain size, whether it's past so many billions in annual revenue or past a certain percentage of the market share. Essentially, once you're past a certain size, investing your revenue and expanding your business even further is still taxable. Now, this should make the market more competitive for smaller businesses, which will create more competition in the marketplace, which not only makes prices more competitive, but also salaries. If an entire industry is being dominated by 3 or 4 companies, if the employees are not being paid properly, they don't really have any options. Companies don't really have an incentive to raise people's salaries, so the people don't really have the option to quit and go somewhere else. But there are probably better solutions that are beyond my ability to think of anyway. Now, I don't want this video to be taken as a discouragement or me undermining people who are pursuing other options, like employing a wealth tax. I'm not saying not to do that if you believe that's going to be effective. I'm saying I don't believe that's going to be effective enough. And if you're in the comments right now writing something like capitalism leads automatically to oligarchy, socialism is the only option, we have to tear it all down and start from scratch. Maybe you're right, I don't know. But what I do know is that's not going to happen, at least not for now. See, to get your full-scale revolution, you need a lot of people on your side, and people have too much invested in a certain amount of stability. They have family members that rely on them. They have loved ones who are sick that need medical treatment. Most people are not prepared for the consequences of tearing the whole system down and starting again from scratch. I'm open to listening to long-term ideological solutions theoretically. We also need short-term solutions, right? Single steps in the right direction from where we are to some place we'd rather be.